Welcome everyone. Welcome to our call. So we want to welcome everyone on Facebook. We want to welcome everyone on Zoom. We've got a fabulous call planned today. Our topic, the role of intuition. How do you know who you are listening to? This is going to be a fabulous conversation. We're going to invite each and every one of you on the call, on the Zoom call, to have your questions ready, because we want to spend a little more time today answering questions that are really affecting people. As you know, Heartwiring Women began as a conversation, a live conversation between two life coaches from two different countries, from two different continents, coming together to share one universal truth around how women can hardwire and heal their emotional bodies. The Facebook group has now grown into a multicultural network. We've got 9 countries represented, 4 continents represented, and within just our small group of 45 members. And so we're giving everyone right now this opportunity to join us and share the wisdom that they've gotten along their journeys. My name is Robin Johnson, and I am one of your co-hosts. Many of you know my story. Like many people, I've had my own traumas. And as a result of my trauma, I chose the spiritual journey after trying to live life only through my successes. And then through success, I tried to minimize, all of the things that had happened before. So I thought that by going to school, going to college, going to grad school in London and Paris and traveling the world and going to 40 countries, I thought all of that would bring me into the oneness with God, but it did not. It gave me great exposure. But the oneness I'm finding that I needed is that journey that you take from your head to your heart. How do you move into that heart space? So that put me in a place where I studied a lot around religion and religious traditions and life coaching. And I found that my blockage was more an emotional blockage and beliefs that came out of the trauma, not just the trauma itself, but the beliefs. All of the trauma created a problem for me, and that was trust. I had trust issues with everyone. So now when you're talking about divine guidance, trust, are you kidding me? This spirit that I'm beginning to feel, hear, see, know, understand, you want me to trust you? I don't trust anybody. So here we go. That's going to be our conversation for today. Throughout my journey, I documented my journey in 2 books. One, Awakening of a Chocolate Mystic. The other, ETA to Oneness, A Journey to Spiritual Awakening. You can find more about my programs at www.etatowoneness.com. So now I'm going to turn it over to the other co-host, Adele Green, for her to tell you a little bit about herself.
Thank you, Robin. So I also want to welcome you today, Mercury retrograde. We're going right up into it, and we might mention a little bit more about it at the end. Robin and I actually spoke about it yesterday and what it means beyond the everyday stuff people know. So to you guys who joined us here, you're the only ones who's going to be live in the conversation today. And that's exciting in a way, because it means that we have the privilege afterwards, to post it or not post it, but for the benefit of what we're doing today. This is exclusive, it's special, and it's meant to be your energy in here, nobody else's. And that means something to me. So on that note, like Robin, I too experienced trauma repeatedly in my life. And at 40, it took me a long time. At 40, I finally left everything behind me to live my life on a permanent spiritual quest. And what I discovered was that all the answers I needed was inside of me, and that I was not meant to be living like a nun. So God sent me my third husband. I know there's a story, and my soulmate, with whom I now live in Hawaii. And much of my journey and insights are shared in my blogs and podcasts and books, which you can find on adele-green.com. So, Robin, back to you. Will you introduce our topic, the role of intuition? And do you know who you are listening to?
I am so excited to do this topic today. This one is really special for me and to me. So when we're talking about the role of intuition, I think we need to start first with, let's define what we even mean by the word intuition. So I researched it, and out of all of the definitions, I like the definition by the Collins Dictionary, which states, your intuition or intuitions are unexplained feelings you have that something is true even when you have no evidence or proof of it. So let me say that again. Your intuition or intuitions are unexplained feelings you have that something is true even when you have no evidence or proof of it. I know for me, and I know for everyone on the call and everyone listening, all of us have had that experience. We have had the experience of thinking something's true, knowing something's true, and people telling us, you're wrong, that can't be happening, there's no evidence, there's no proof. But how do you stay in that place of trusting that? So before we go a little bit further into our conversation in terms of answering the question, how do you know who you're listening to? Let's talk first about the various ways you can receive intuition. So in my book, ETA to Oneness, A Journey to Spiritual Awakening, I write, in order to receive divine messages, it is important to operate beyond your five senses. Some of us admit to being clairvoyant, the ability to see things in dreams, because we have visions that are not in our current reality, but they eventually manifest. Others are considered clairsentient because they are able to feel emotional vibrations often ahead of time, alerting them to problems even before knowing the details with their conscious minds. And finally, there are those of us who are clairaudient because they are able to clearly hear the still small voice, that voice that people say that's the Spirit of God within you. And they are able to hear that wisdom that is coming beyond their conscious knowing. So once again, there are three major ways. There are additional, but these are the major ways that people often get information. Clairvoyant, clear visioning; clairsentient, clear feeling; and clairaudient, clear healing. So it is important for you to know yourself and how you get intuitive feelings, because it's different for everybody. As for me personally, I started out more on the clairsentient side, but I have ended up more on the clairaudient side now. So Adele, what would you like to contribute to our topic today on the role of intuition?
So the first thing I want to say is that, you know how things work. Everything kind of resonate when your mind is focused on something. Everything kind of happens on the same vibe. So last night I was scrolling through Facebook, and guess what I saw? 4 different courses on intuition. Bam, just like that, all free. And I thought, is that a coincidence? So that's another little clue. You know, there's always these synchronicities around the intuitive things. And as things go, I mean, when Robin, if you ask me what I get, okay, what I hear when you described each of those different ones, everyone starts with clear this and clear that. Isn't that interesting? Because the first time we spoke about this, everything leading up to this, and how, you know, we are hardwired, we need to be able to hear these messages. So any of these apply if the messages are clear. So when it comes to me, it's very interesting. So I'm going to tell you a story. Writing a book for me was never on the bucket list, okay? Nor was public speaking or putting my life on public display. I'm a very private person, and I lived like a hermit for the last 3 years of my life before we came to Hawaii. So I arrived at my desk one Monday morning with an open calendar of 2 weeks. After a colleague and I postponed a project, and I found myself writing a letter to my ex. So I literally, 8 o'clock on a Monday morning, open my computer in my journal, starting to write a letter, typing on the computer. Because he often asked me, please, I want to understand, why did you leave me? Okay. And I thought, okay, I got nothing better to do. This never happens. I'm never going to get this opportunity again. Let me do it. So I had no idea, no thoughts about it, nothing. This was completely out of the blue. And I did not stop writing until that Friday. It took me 5 days. I wrote 75,000 words and literally 300 pages. And on the second day, on the Tuesday morning, there was a ping on my computer. You know how email messages kind of intrude on everything else that you do, the way they set up these things. And there was a message that popped up in my inbox from Hay House. I never get messages from Hay House. And they said, we have a non-fiction book competition in 3 weeks. Guess what was the next thought that popped up in my mind? I might be writing a book. And, you know, it wasn't until a year later that the book was published that something became clear to me. I had this recurring dream for a long time before I wrote that book. And this is how messages come to me. It started out in any case coming to me, but I didn't always make the connection. And you might be making a connection now because there might be something happening to you all the time, but you never connected the dots. So what happened for me was I used to have this dream. I was in my house where I lived, and I had a boundary around my house. And outside this boundary, there was always this group of people that showed up. Each time I had this dream, another thing happened, and another thing happened, and then the dream would stop. And next time when I had the dream, there would be a new part to the dream. So the dream went on a little bit longer. So at first, there were just the amount of people walking around my house. I then discovered in the next dream that these people are like my spirit guides, if you will, you know, but they look like people in my dream. And then the next time that they showed up, they kind of indicated to me, because they used to communicate to me telepathically, that they had a gift for me. And then the next time they showed up, they actually held the gift. And then the next time they showed up, they gave me the gift. And the last dream, I opened the gift, and guess what was in the gift? This incredible light that was shining. It was so bright, and I didn't know what to make of it. I just felt incredible layers and layers and layers of feeling. So that's how, one of the ways that I get intuition. And those feelings that I got was literally when I was writing the book, how the messages unfold through my mind and through my filters. So that's what I want to share at this stage. So, you know, once I had written the book, the dreams have stopped. And it was only once I published the book that I connected the dots. And that's where I'm going to leave you. So, Robin, what would you like to add at this point about the role of intuition?
I'd like to share how I kind of begun to hear the spirit within me, because I think it's fascinating, the journey that I took. Like I said, initially I was very clear, sentient. I could feel things. I could step into a room and I knew something was going on. That's just kind of how I processed information. But as I continued studying spirituality and traveling a lot and studying a lot of religious traditions, it seemed like I was preparing myself for that shift. But when the shift came, I was like not ready. So in my first book, Awakening of a Chocolate Mystic, this is what I write about this encounter with my spirit. I have to admit that when I first heard the voice of my spirit, I did not believe it. So I asked my spirit to prove its existence. Yeah, I will admit it. I did not trust the voice of the Spirit of God within me. I had spent too much of my life in distrust with everything and everyone. I was not going to trust some unknown voice to control my destiny. You see, I'm a very analytical person with my rational and logical mind well entrenched. So I needed proof. If I was to follow another voice taking up residence inside of my head. So, how did I test the voice of my spirit? You're probably asking. It happened on a flight back into DC from Chicago. When the plane landed, the pilot said that because we were early, there was another plane occupying our gate. We were waiting for the air traffic controllers to find us a new gate when my neurotic mind went into overdrive. At this point in my life, I planned out everything to make sure my safety was taken care of. Childhood trauma can do that to you, make you neurotic. Anyway, the many competing voices in my head were debating about whether to take a taxi from the airport, which is always a slow process in DC, or take the metro, which stopped just blocks from my apartment on the waterfront. But it was dark. While this conversation raged inside of my head, I heard a voice say, "Don't worry, it will be fine." My reaction was, "Shut up. I have enough voices inside my head already." The response came, "I am not inside your head. I am your spirit." My response was, "Yeah, right." Then I thought, wait, if you are not inside my head and you claim to be the Spirit of God within me, then prove it. The question came, what do you want me to do? What would be a good challenge for the Spirit of God? Something I have no way of knowing. I got it. I asked my spirit to tell me what gate this plane is going to park. Since we were not sitting near the terminal gates, I thought this would be a good challenge. Spirit, being the voice of God inside me, would easily know the answer, since God in my theology was omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. God knows everything without regard to time and space. My spirit answered my question with the number 39. I confirmed, "Did you say 39? My spirit says yes. I sit back in my seat with a big smile on my face, so confident the voice was wrong. The plane started moving, and since I was sitting up front on the left-hand side of the aircraft, I got to see the gate numbers as the plane started moving. As we approached gate 39, I sat up, stared out the window. The plane started to pass gate 39, and I immediately said to the voice, "See, I never should have listened to you. You don't know what you're talking about." As I finished my tirade, the plane turned and parked at gate 39. Now, my whole body started shaking like a leaf in the wind. I said to my spirit, "Hey, let me ask you one more thing." The response was, "No, you just wanted to know if I was real." Whoa, did that just happen? Since that time, for me personally, it's been a process for me I can hear the spirit, but it's been a process for me to trust it. So I actually said that, "Look, I hear you, but I can't trust you." So my spirit said, "Trust me a little at a time. So if you can trust me a little at a time, then we'll make progress." So over time, that's what I did. I would hear my spirit and say, "No, that's not going to work. I'm going to do it like this." And I would do it like that, even though I heard to do it a different way. And then I'd come back and say, "I guess you were right on that one." And that's how I eventually graduated into this connectivity with my spirit, so that if I hear a message, I'm not so quick to say, "I'm not doing that," or "I don't agree with that." I'm quicker to say, "Wow, so let me see how this is going to work, because I don't see this." But hearing has nothing to do now with my willingness to do. I am more willing to do what I hear as opposed to challenge what I hear. And I just have to sometimes wait on why it is I was told to do it in that fashion. So this is an amazing journey that we are all on. I can also just say that one of the things I had to also learn was we can get so comfortable in our intuition and our divine guidance, and we can get so programmed from our external reality in terms of what we want to see happen, especially if we're thinking that we're doing something that is providing a good service or something that's beneficial to other people in addition to ourselves. And one of the things I ran into early was what I called my spiritualized ego. So what that means to me is that I could hear the voice inside my head, I could follow it, and then I started wanting to direct it on my behalf. I need you to do this for me right now because I believe this is the best way to make things happen. And as a result of that, I started getting real comfortable. And before I knew it, my internal guidance system was pretty much hacked, I can say, by my ego. It's almost like my ego said, oh, you want to be spiritual? I can do that. And so now I'm starting to do things that I'm feeling God is directing me to do. But ultimately what would happen is whatever I was doing could not be sustained. There was no sustainability. I could achieve it. I could make it happen, but I couldn't maintain it. And I'm like, well, what kind of God is this where I can achieve, but I can't maintain? And then one day I was in my quiet space and all I heard my spirit say is, because that's not me. I'm not in that. That's you directing all of that. What? So it's been a fascinating journey. And I can only say to everyone to also be aware of when you desire something so much that you override all of your own intuition trying to make that happen. And in that moment, just know that you potentially may be letting your ego, spiritualized ego, run the show as opposed to that internal voice, that spirit of God, that real intuition within. So if any of you are having trouble with that and knowing the distinction, we're going to talk about that today. But we also have left information in Unit 4 on our Facebook group page about how to move through a process to recognize your spiritualized ego. So Adele, I think I've shared all I'd like to share before we move forward. So what else would you like to share before we do questions?
So I just want to say one thing. When that happens, which to use Robin's words, the spiritualized ego, when that happens, it is normal. It is normal because now you learn to trust it. Once you trust it, you want to use it and manipulate it because this is how we are. So when you reach a level of mastery, this is one of the very first most important lessons, and these are not my words, these are known. This is known. This is the first thing we learn is humility. And it's humility in terms of our own needs. So remember, this is all we know at this stage. This is not coming from a place of judgment. It comes from learning non-judgment, and it's not about prioritizing, the needs of spirit or our intuition over our own. It's about finding that place of co-creation. And you find that when you stay connected to your feminine energy. I just want to say one more thing. One other way that you know how to recognize this space is that you will run out of energy. It's like that energy gets spent. That energy that initially sparks something. I mentioned this before when we spoke about, I can't remember what was it in which exact part of the 3 topics, that we addressed where I brought this up. But I've mentioned this before. So it's because you're acting in the masculine energy. So you're acting out on your inspired action, right? You had this deep, profound insight or epiphany, and then it kind of runs your life for a little bit, but eventually that energy gets spent. Then all you're doing is more and more and more and more of the same, repeating the same thing. And eventually you become out of tune with the flow, and then you have to go back. And then it's kind of like, but what did I miss? What did I do wrong? Why am I not in tune anymore? And that's when okay. So, this is your spiritualized ego doing its little program. It's like running the same program over and over again. So the way around that is to stay connected with your feminine, because your feminine is the process in. Your feminine voice is is your intuition will speak to you in your feminine voice. It's a soft whisper. It doesn't compete with the other voices in your head. It's got a unique message. And like you know, when you know it's that, it's a God, when you, to get that clarity, to get to that point where you just know this is what today is about, right? How we recognize that. So from my side, I just maybe want to share this story because stories is a great way of learning. So when I left my life behind me in South Africa, and I'm talking about, when I turned 40 and I went on my spiritual quest. So I traveled the States for 3 months with no goal or responsibilities. So I left behind much of the old programming, or at least I tried to. I tried to give this new side of me a chance. And all I needed was really to connect with my children through technology. And I needed to find a bed for the night and food. And I followed my guidance, or at least I tried to. I tried to interpret what that was all about. So at first it was very weird for me because I kind of felt like a homeless person, but I wasn't a homeless person. Okay. And I still had access to all the old ways of doing things and all the resources. But this was different. It was kind of like I was Alice in Wonderland and the world was magical and beautiful and everything happened instantly when I tried to manifest it, but it was upside down. And the upside down part was me learning to reinterpret my life through this intuition. And I had no expectations, but what I did have was, so I wasn't running my world through goals, but I did have time. And I used this time to notice things around me. And what I would notice was body sensations, things I would normally miss. I would be more aware of my dreams. It was like I would become more aware of words. So I'm a word person. And when people spoke to me, some of their words were highlighted. It's like watching a movie and they are putting a highlight on, literally just pulling out some of the phrases people were saying. Or if I was looking at a book, it was like some words stood out more than others to me. And this became answers for me. So in my heart, I would ask a question, a clear, authentic question, not filled with a whole lot of other things on a to-do list or a lot of other things going on in my life. And almost instantly, I would be getting these answers back through the words of people and the words in conversations that stood out to me, or the dream I had last night and instantly understanding the dream, or, through my body telling me this part is hurting and then what does it mean, and figuring it out. So it was literally like I went back to school and I was learning how to make meaning of this. And in the bigger picture, it was like the whole universe started to talk to me and we were having one massive conversation. And I often refer to this as, reflection. Everything in this big hologram, if you into the matrix and things like that, was talking back to me. And I was having this live conversation going on with God, if you will. And I doubted some of the answers. I wouldn't believe it, right? And trust is one of the first things we need to learn. So I would communicate back and I'd say, but I don't believe you. Show me. And then I would get the same answer again and I'd get it in a different way. And initially I would need at least two confirmations. And then later I would get one confirmation and eventually, I wouldn't be asking for confirmations and I would become more confident. It's like when we start to exercise that muscle, we put things into practice. And I became very good at speaking the language of the universe. And this is how intuition works when we learn to work with it. When you follow a little thing or you act on inspiration, you're going to get a better, more important one next time and a bigger one. And eventually you started to make bigger risk, which feels like your life. And it's like this game then begins between you and what you think you want. It's kind of like what I want versus what I need, because your soul knows what you need and you'll always have access to that. And this is the thing, where the more you start living this way, the more you realize just how much abundance there actually is in the world. If I have to tell you how many of the things I need shows up in my life and I never pay for them, I don't even have to pay for them. They just shows up. I mean, Robin and I have been sharing lots of confirmations lately about things like that showing up in our lives. And it's not because I can't afford to pay for it. It's like that process is almost irrelevant. When you start to really understand how this works and you work with the process works with you. This is when we co-create. So, our ego is not a bad thing. It's part of the personality and the filters that we have with which to interpret how we connect with the world. And it doesn't mean we have to kill it. It doesn't have to be so threatened. It just has to learn how to work with this process and trust. And then that becomes our co-creation. So understanding how intuition starts for us and then learning how to work with that process. For me, I learned how to trust the information. And the more I trusted, the more my heart opened, the more I received. Sometimes some of the messages that I receive are so out there, I don't even know what to do with it. They can be out of time. And when they are out of time, then it's like I I I say to Spirit, so what am I supposed to do with it? Or I don't want to use the information. So I just want to give you an example of that. I had sometimes before I see clients, I would get like a whole download about this person. I might not have met them before and I know nothing about them. So my filters are clear. I have no bias. And then when I connect with them and I work with them, I already know what their souls wants to communicate with them, but I don't know how to do that. So when I communicate with him, it is complete trust. And this is how that happened for me, even to understand how I need to get me out of the way, whether I think the information is relevant or not. So I had one client and I got the message that this person should be a horse whisperer. The person came to see me. He was the manager in a very big factory. He is living in a city and he was very depressed. And he came to me about his depression. And I knew the answer was that he had to be a horse whisperer. And I was thinking to myself, so this is the ego speaking to me. It was like, the me part of me. And it said, that, how are you going to tell this person this crazy nutcase thing? You're going to lose all credibility. This person is paying you. This is not some person walking in the street that you are trying to connect with. That is, how this is ridiculous. So anyway, that day I decided to trust Spirit and I actually connected with a person and I said, I have this message for you. And when I told the guy, he said to me, I really love horses. It was like, there was no lead up to it. There was no opportunity. I delivered something that was crazy. I wasn't a psychic. I didn't even like anything about psychics. I don't like the stigma of it. I don't like people asking me things about their future because I don't work with people from that space. And this was one of those incidents where I really learned that when I get information, it's always relevant. I just have to stop trying to figure out what to do with it and sometimes just follow the very clear and practical things. The bottom line is after this person acted on the information, the depression went away. This was what they came to. This was the purpose of his life. And I was the person who delivered it. And there was nobody else suitable to deliver that. So that was one example. Another thing is I made a deal with my spirit. And this is where I'm going to end. You can do that. You can make a deal with your spirit. Sometimes, spirit is not flesh. And spirit doesn't always understand the things that it does understand, but we're not always ready, maybe, or we think that we're not ready. And we don't always want to do the things that spirit wants us to do. And we can please, brakes, just, hit the brakes with it already. So spirit would sometimes give me some of those far out messages and it's stuff about my future and stuff that scares me. I'm not always ready to hear the stuff. And then I would say to spirit, please just stop giving me the messages if it's too far out in the future, especially if I'm not supposed to do anything with it, because I don't want to hold all that information inside of me. So I just wanted to share that because, this is more down the line, the kind of things that'll happen, but you can communicate with spirit and you can say too much, too little, I'm ready for more. And spirit responds, because believe it or not, on that side, there are also ways that spirit responds, because it's an interaction. And with that, I'm going to ask Robin if she has any final thoughts before we go into questions.
No final thoughts. I just would love to get some feedback from our participants on our Zoom call, because I'm sure we're not the only ones out here having these crazy, wacky experiences that we follow something and everybody's telling us it makes no sense, but it turns out to be the right thing for us. So I'm going to start first with my mother, Shirley Dennis. And I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit about following her intuition when it came to moving between jobs when everybody around her told her it made no sense. So Shirley Dennis, we're going to unmute you and we're going to let you speak. Is that okay?
Okay, so Shirley,
You
that's
have to click unmute.
no, it's me. It's a
There it is. Okay, we're good.
waiting for Mercury. Mercury's helping us today. Shirley, are you there?
Came up. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I guess the first time I made a very drastic decision to change a job was after my first husband left, and I was a single mother of 3 little babies, one 6 months, one 2.5, and one 3.5. And while I was with my first husband, I was working the night shift at a catalog company. So you know how long ago that was. And after he left, I had studied. The two of us had studied real estate, and I had a driver's license because I drove back and forth to work. I was like 24, 25 years old. And I had this $5, and I had to decide whether to go renew my real estate license, which I was not using, or take that $5 and go renew my driver's license, which I was using. And I decided that I would probably be able to drive another week or so with this expired license. but I had to go and renew the real estate license, or I would not be able to sell real estate until I took the tests again and waited to pass and so forth. And so I went to renew this license at this real estate office, and the president of the company offered me a spot, and he offered me a job, and he offered me a car to use, and so my life and my daughter's lives turned over on that kind of dime, so to speak. But I want to share also that before I went to do that and my life shifted so totally, I had not spoken to my mother, my father, my sister, or any friends about how I was feeling suddenly a single mother with these 3 little babies, and what was I going to do? I just didn't know what I was going to do, and I didn't hear anything. You know, my spirit did not present itself to me when I went with this last $5 to do that, but I felt compelled to do it. And so that's what I have learned to do. I've learned to act on a compulsion, whether anybody else understands it or not.
That's great. That's exactly what we're talking about. Because as I said earlier, we have different ways that we get information. And so as my mother says, Shirley Dennis, she says, hey, it came by way of a feeling that she had. And that's clairsentient. And so not everybody hears like me. That's clairaudience. So trust what you're getting. So I had a conversation earlier this week with Danny.
Just hold on, Robin. Sorry to interrupt you. Shirley, do you actually have a question, or did you just want to share that?
Well, I wanted to share that because the two of you talked about hearing your spirit and talking with your spirit. And I have never had that experience. I have always just felt absolutely compelled to do something that didn't make a lot of sense in the moment and might not make a lot of sense to my friends, family for years. Sometimes I have been so far ahead of what would make sense that people would be looking, as we used to call it, sideways at me for 2 or 3 years before it would all kind of come together, and they would be like, oh, okay, so that's what you were talking about. That's why you did that.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to know what you all thought about that.
Okay.
And where does that fit, Robin, in the way you described how the spirit kind of works?
Can I answer that, Robin, before you?
Sure.
Okay. So I want to say this, and it's not something that we've said yet, so it feels important. So thank you for sharing that. So it sounds, when you told your story, like, because you had the two choices and you were explaining your situation, you were either going to act from a place of desperation because you needed a driver's license, you cannot have one, or you had to trust the message that you got and go for the risk. But without that, with that choosing your realtor's license, you could actually generate what you needed and get more of it. And that would be a risk, but it also came from a place of love versus fear. So, and this is the space in which the intuition, if you want to know if it's your intuition, even though you don't hear a voice in your head, or you don't have the space inside to determine, is it this or is it this, or your life is very, very busy and you're in this space and you need to switch gears to connect with your intuition is always going to speak to you from a place of not logic. Doesn't come from logic. It comes from love. It's like a way out thought. And I think both Robin and I try to highlight that in some of our messages. It's like this thought that wasn't there before. Okay. So that's definitely intuition. It's not a chance that you took. It's not a random thing. And our soul will present it to us in whatever way. I mean, I've literally been blocked from walking into buildings, which would have been detrimental to me. Like I was walking into a wall when there was nothing there. It doesn't matter how it comes. These are just the things Robin mentioned. These are just the more accepted ways of how people's intuition would be communicated to them. So it's not defined by only those. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Robin. I just wanted to highlight that, because the thing is, the intuition is always going to talk to us from an open heart space, not a contracted space.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And it is not logical, and it's not rational, and it is action, inspired action you feel you must take, have to take, need to take. I've had that experience on many occasions without actually getting a clear message, but felt I must go right now to do whatever right now. And then I get to see later why it was done like that. And the thing is, when it's coming from a place of love, is you don't feel, you feel you can do it and it's going to be okay. You always feel it's going to be okay. So, all right. So
Danny.
The next question, Danny, we had talked earlier this week about intuition and connecting to people. Do you want to talk a little bit more about people crossing your mind, connecting to them, and what happens, and how does intuition play into that?
Guys, you can unmute yourselves when you need to.
I just did. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Danny.
Yeah. Yeah. What my question to Robin the other day was, well, you all of a sudden somebody pops into your mind and you wonder, well, why? Why is he or she, is it this person trying to contact you, or is it something happening to that person? It just comes and goes. And so I figured there must be a reason why it's popping up, but I sometimes I don't know how to interpret it, so that's my basic question.
Okay. Robin,
if you can make sense of it.
Do you have an answer?
No, I mean,
okay.
we talk, but let's hear what you have to say, because Danny already knows my thoughts on that. So let's hear what you have to say.
So quickly, for the benefit of the rest of us, tell us your thoughts, Robin.
In general, I say that, and I tell my mom this all the time, there's just one mind in the universe. We're all part of the one mind. And sometimes when we get information to connect to someone, it's often because in that one mind, we can actually connect to their energy. So we know whether it's something good happening, a challenge. And so we're getting almost like a message or a feeling to call them. And then we hear it and we can respond or not respond, but I think there's more to it underlying how that process really works.
Mm. So Danny, from my side, I would say that I think you're going to get as many opinions as people that you speak to. So, and it will be based on their own experience. So from my experience, when somebody pops into my mind, it could be at least one of two reasons. If it's somebody that I'm very close to, it could be that, that I'm soul family with him, but I'm also very closely connected. So it depends on my relationship with the person. If somebody pops into my mind, there's a good chance that they need me to support them energetically in one way or the other. So I connect with them in terms of sending them love or holding them in my thoughts if I can't connect with them immediately. But chances are something is going on and they need to draw on my energy. That's how I interpret that. And you can question me about that because it can mean many things. But if it's a random person popping into my mind, that's not necessarily a close person, because I think a lot of us have our different relationships and connections with people close to us. If it's a random person popping into my mind, it depends how I serve. So, I have a gift where I'm in a situation where I help people often. And even if I've been refusing to coach, Spirit would put somebody on a plane to me. I would fly to the other side of the world the days before we had connection with the Wi-Fi with everybody all the time, to get away from just this constant people bombarding me to help them, etc. And just to get a break. And I would sit on the plane for like 14 hours from South Africa to New York, and this person is at a pinnacle moment in their life needing to make a decision. And guess what? I'll be doing the entire flight. So when somebody pops into your mind and you serve in a certain way, there's a chance that that person in that very minute needs what you have to give. And in your wiring, we designed to show up. Sometimes it goes as deep as you've made soul contracts with people who even outside of this world, and they need you right now, and you need to show up. So whether that person phones you in that next moment, or you phone them, or whatever the reason is for them popping into your mind, it could be that deep, or it could be just that they're thinking of you too, and they're gonna phone you. So I have this happen to me a lot, and because I am not, and I've been in coaching for a long time, I would often respond to those messages, and a lot of the time those people would then sign up a coaching contract with me or whatever the case might be, and it's very guided. Is that helping you? Is it not helping you?
Oh, definitely.
Enough information.
Yeah.
Okay. So when somebody pops into your mind, by all means reach out to them. Don't even wonder why you're having the thought, because the one thing that I've learned with intuition is that we do not have to understand. We can trust it, and when you connect with what you're feeling, then the next part of the puzzle will be revealed to you. Okay. Is that okay? Do you need to know more?
Yes. No, that's good. That clarifies it. Thank you to you both.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Michelle, do you have any questions for us? Yes. Oh, she's muted.
She can unmute herself at this stage. Okay. But I'll help. If Mercury will help me.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Thank you very much. By the way, my name is pronounced Michael.
Michael. Okay.
Michael. Beautiful.
Michael. Where are you calling from?
I'm coming from New York, Long Island.
Long Island. Okay. Welcome.
Yeah. I'm a friend of Danny. We grew up together. We went to school together.
Oh, nice.
And we met again through Facebook a few years ago. and she invited me to join your group. Concerning nutrition, myself, I do feel that I get with my dream some message. And the bigger one that I had, that was 40 years ago. I was married 5 years, and I had a dream of my mother in November that I was going to be pregnant, and I will have a boy. A month later, in December, I had the first symptoms. When I went to the doctor, I was pregnant. But the dream with my mom came back when I was 6-7 months pregnant. She went to Macy's with me and she bought all the clothes for little boy. And when I went online to pay, I didn't see her. When I realized there was something wrong, I said I have to look for her. And I went in the second floor and I found her in a beautiful, I could say like a jacuzzi, beautiful clear water. And she told me, Mika, that's my nickname. I came to do what I had to do. We're living in two different worlds. I did what I had to do, now I'll go back to where I belong. And she disappeared. And a few months later, I got a baby boy. Yeah. And I have different dreams in the future, and it was almost like a preview what would be happening. I'm almost a little scared of my dreams. Yeah. Yeah, that's my type of intuition. And intuition too, as Danny mentioned, sometimes you have a feeling that somebody is trying to reach you, and a few minutes later, you get a phone call of that person. Yeah.
Do you have a question?
I agree with a lot of, what the conversation is all about. We have to follow our intuition.
Do you have a question, Miguel?
Not really, because so far I have a lot of self-confidence. And I could say as a little girl, I couldn't say I was on my own, but I know the spirit was with me. I always have that strong belief of whatever step, even like I was born in Haiti, and with the government, I left Haiti 51 years ago, and I was the only one in America. And I always feel strong because I know I follow what the spirit is telling me to do the right move. It's like I could say I'm a happy, positive person. I do not have all the pedigree that you have, but whatever at work, in my life, I always that type of positive mind will help. It's like my heart is wiring to show love. That's all I do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I respond, Robin?
Sure.
Okay. So, Miguel, you don't have a question, but you said something that is important. So first of all, I just want to say that the kind of intuition you have can also be perceived as precognition. So that is knowing what happens before it happens, and it's a very specific kind of almost specialized intuition. Okay. The fact that you had it through dreams makes sense to me, because some of us will get the information through dreams, and I find that of all the ways that the soul can communicate with us, whatever it wants to communicate with us, the dream is one of the purest way to receive information, because in the dream space, the ego is not always there, and it cannot filter and I don't want to say the word contaminate, but it cannot, that like you have from trauma or triggers, you can sometimes have those distortions when you get messages. In the dream, the messages is sometimes clear. It's the interpretation that might be lacking, but the dream itself is a very nice way to, for me anyway, that I've learned is one of the best ways to accurately understand what spirit is trying to communicate with me. So that's very important. The other thing I wanted to say that I realized we haven't shared yet, and you spoke of it, is that when messages come, it will come to us through ways that we can absorb the information. So in your dream, it was your mother who brought the message. You trusted your mother, so you trusted the information. Okay. Sometimes it can happen differently. So sometimes, like with me, spirit will give me a feeling, and it give me a feeling through something that happened to me at some stage in my life, an event. The event would leave me with a feeling of whatever emotion, and then I would get that specific emotion, and they communicating to me through the feelings, and then I would go back to the event, but it's not the details and the elements of the aspect that they're wanting me to understand. It's the feeling. Then they'll give me another feeling and another feeling, and it builds a story. And in the story, they will give me something that's going to happen, and might happen that day or that week or later. But whenever it happens, I will remember that dream as clear as daylight, just like you can remember a dream you had so long ago before your child was born, because the clarity of it is always crystal clear in your mind, no matter the time. It's irrelevant. And then you can go back and you think like, yes, that's what that dream has meant. And that's how we learn. That's how we learn to trust it. So I just wanted to also share that. And thank you for sharing, because that happens to a lot of us. They don't call it women's wisdom for nothing. Precognition is part of many of our lives. And the more you learn to trust your intuition, it can become precognition if those are going to be one of your gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So the last one still on the call with us is Rochelle. Do you have some question or comment you'd like to make about intuition, the role of intuition for you?
Yeah, I, like you, I get messages.
Mm-hmm.
And my message just very recently, as I work through an issue, was that my next chapter of life is blank.
Mm.
And for me, that's like, oh my God. And it's like things will come to me. I don't have to do a thing. I do not have to do anything. And it's very interesting, because I feel that I had to get to a point where I was emotionally and physically exhausted, where I just let go and I surrendered, and I go, okay, whatever it's to be, it's to be.
Mm.
And I stopped everything, and I really, I'm still looking to see what makes me want to do certain things now, but I'm not doing anything. And that's a huge thing for me, because I like to go and do and this and that, and Robin knows about this. But that's my message. My next chapter of my life is totally blank. And I just, everything will come, and it'll just, I don't have to orchestrate a thing. And it's a great feeling to just let go and let God.
Please, can I respond to that?
Sure.
Okay, Robin, can I respond first?
Sure.
Okay. So when I was telling you guys that I went to the States and I had no responsibilities, this was exactly the place where I was at. There was no old programming going on, and that's where Spirit wants us.
Mm.
It wants us to be able to hear it clearer. So, Rochelle, right now, you're in a space where Spirit wants you to just listen and not do. Does that comprehend for you? Sometimes our masculine is very developed, and we're very good at acting out on things, but we're not so good with our feminine. We're not so good at and you know that because there's an interaction when they're both in balance. Robin and I spoke about this in detail yesterday, and this is one of the things we wanted to impart at the end in terms of tips we wanted to pass on to you guys. So when we connect with our intuition, it's not us needing to decide, and I know Robin has firsthand experience of this as well, deciding what needs to happen with the messages from Spirit. It's literally waiting, and you get it on demand. So you become very good at listening. So that might be, Rochelle, where you're going now. Another thing I want to say is when it requires no effort of us, when Spirit is like, you just wait. It becomes easier. And I know we talked about this also the last time. It does not require a lot of effort from us. When you have to put in a lot of effort, you must ask yourself, how invested is my ego in what I'm doing here? Maybe we over-invest. Sometimes Spirit just wants us to wait because we have the ability. We just need to be 100% ready to listen. And then it's like the pipe connection changes to a waterfall. So, and that normally comes with a big shift. So, Rochelle, are you really hearing me?
I am so hearing you.
Okay.
I am so ready to just see what happens. I don't know. I really don't know.
Good.
It's okay.
So every time you want to jump and act on something, ask yourself, give me that confirmation that I must act now. Okay? Because remember, you have a very well-developed masculine, as in you, very good at acting on things. So now is not the time to do that. And often our growth is very individual. Some of us need to act more. Like I need to speak louder, closer to the mic. See, I'm doing it today. The
You're
mic's
doing good.
right next to my face. So, but I'm not shouting at anybody. I speak as I always would speak, right? So it happens without effort. When we show up, the whole world show up because we're showing up the way we mean to. Now it becomes a co-creation. Now it becomes an interaction when that balance is there. And the intuition, believe you me, does not shout at us. It'll show you one neon sign after another, and it'll be there, but we can't hear it. And there's one other quick thing I just want to say to you, Rochelle, before I'm going to ask Robin for her thoughts. You said you needed to be exhausted.
Yeah.
So
So much.
let's just do that. So you needed to be exhausted before you could go, yeah. That means you were not listening. You do not need to be exhausted, people. I know this from personal experience, and let me tell you, for me, it was extreme because I left an entire life behind me. I probably didn't even need to do that, but I just didn't know how else to listen. So I wasn't ready to just distinguish and discern the voice amongst all the others. Sometimes we get exhausted because we run out of ideas. You know whose ideas we run out of? Our own. Okay, so it is a friendly reminder for us when we run out of energy. That's not the way of Spirit. We don't need to run out of energy. Spirit does not require for us to go through these massive, painful breakthroughs. As coaches, we know how hard it can be for people to shift. That's why I started the kinesiology, because it was more unconscious, it was less painful, and I could use the best of both worlds. But trust me, if it's that painful, it's probably not from your intuition. Okay. Feminine's gentle and loving. Your heart expands. There's a vastness. Anytime you need to do something and you feel contracted, you're probably not meant to do it. Okay. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as the two of you were speaking, there was a passage in one of my favorite books. It's by a guy by the name of Joel Goldsmith, written in like the 1950s, something or the other. It's called The Thunder of Silence. And at some point in the book, he says, the mind is a place for spiritual awareness and not a place for activity. So what would happen if you let your mind be a blank slate and said, God, write what you will? So when you said that, Rochelle, that's the message that came to me. I mean, that's a paraphrase, but that's basically what it's saying. Let your mind be a blank slate and let God write what you will. Because the mind is, from what I've read, should be in service to the heart. The mind is where we take the information and then use the masculine energy, use the inspired action, and go into motion to physically make something happen. But the guidance and the direction for that is coming out of the heart. And when you marry those two and you have inspired action, now you're going to have really good sustainable results. Remember earlier I said with my spiritualized ego, I couldn't get sustained response. And that's how I knew that God was not guiding or directing what I was involved with. So I just wanted to share that. It's been a fabulous conversation. I'm so glad we had this opportunity to have this discussion today. So Adele, any closing remarks from you?
I just want to maybe share 2 tips.
Okay.
The one is the more we listen to our intuition, the more we start to notice things. And awareness is wonderful, but it has a shadow side like all things, right? It's just a coin, and the coin has 2 sides, like everything in this world works in terms of polarity. And when you become too aware, not too aware, there's not really such a thing, but when you work in the world of awareness, you're always aware of the light and the dark. So the dark side of awareness is judgment. We have opinions, and sometimes those opinions becomes the hindrance. So you can look at somebody and you can look at them and you can think, but they don't know yet and I do. And first of all, you just want to share what you know and blah, 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 blah. And that thing, that shadow side of awareness is judgment. It becomes judgment. So staying in an open place, which is where we hear spirit, is where we are not in judgment. When we are not judging, we are open, our awareness are expanded, and this is the space we hold when we live in the space of intuition and clear intuition. So it often is the very first next big lesson that we learn when we start to play with these things. And it is a magical world. So the day that you can hear yourself have an opinion about somebody, just hold the space that maybe, just maybe, there's more to it. And you don't know even everything. And when you allow yourself to be open, that's when the training wheels come off. That's when you get bigger responsibilities in this world. And I don't mean the world and physically our jobs and things like that, but that's when you really start to open up the communication with spirit. So non-judgment is the message and the tip that I want to give you. If you remember nothing else of today, remember this: whatever you understand as non-judgment, whatever you understand in terms of your heart wiring, if you can hold on to that and you can keep yourself in a space of non-judgment, you will move forward in the space of hearing and interpreting and keeping your trauma and triggers out of the way.
All right, Adele, before we go, one more question from Kanisha. So if you're finished, we can allow her to chat. All right, Kanisha.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Can you turn your mic up a little? Or
Sure.
Kanisha, you can't.
Let's see. Is that better?
A little. You're just a little soft there, but go, yeah, that's better.
Okay. I'll let me see. How's that?
Oh,
I'll try to hold it. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. So, I just wanted to ask, as far as living by your intuition, which I have had the opportunity to do so over my life. And one thing that I find challenging is doing so in a consistent manner when you have a lot of demands on your life. And what I mean by that is I am a divorced mom of 5 sons. 4 of them live with me. 2 of them are minors. And I have work full time, and I also, run a couple of businesses. So that getting still, getting quiet, listening to the soft feminine voice with all the testosterone and stuff happening around me has definitely been challenging. Also, I'm in a place now to where I'm intentionally trying to stay connected to the feminine, connect to it and stay, because everything about my life from the time I became a parent to now has been me doing, being in the masculine. Even when I was married, just doing, got to do this, got to do that. I've had those moments where I could hear, where I could feel and also see, pretty much probably all the different methods of hearing from spirit I've had an opportunity to experience, but not on a consistent enough basis to where I would like it to be. I would like that to run my life as opposed to my life running my life. So what would you suggest? And, my story is I can tell you, I grew up in a church, preacher's kid, whole thing, oldest of 5. I have my own 5, like it's a whole thing. So now I'm trying to not be exhausted, like Rochelle said, because a lot of times, including this morning, I'm exhausted. And so what would you suggest?
Can I ask more questions?
Certainly.
Okay. So I can't imagine with so many kids, because I don't have so many, and having different businesses, and all the responsibilities that you have, how much time you can conjure up to stay in the feminine. Tell me more what that means to you, to stay in the feminine. How do you schedule that?
It's very haphazard. Schedule is a great word. It's usually I do schedule more often than not. I will get up in the mornings, go on my walk, to have my quiet time. I have a SUV, so I call it my she space. So I'll take my truck to the beach and I'll face the water, open the back, face the water. I have like a memory foam mattress back there, some cute pink and purple pillows. I'll take, so I'll go do that sometimes. But it's moments like that, just kind of stealing away to do so, because once I'm back home, that's over.
Okay.
So it's those moments, but now I'm actually putting some things in place to be very much so more intentional about it.
Okay. Robin, can I have a go first?
Knock yourself out.
Okay. So incidentally, we also spoke about this yesterday. It's going to be one of our other tips. I assumed that Robin was going to say it, so I didn't say everything. And then you asked the question, how perfect? So, okay. So the first thing I want to say is that the fact that you are surrounded by so much masculine energy means that you're challenged to go deeper into your feminine, but maybe not in the way that you want. So we think it means that we need to have the triggers around us, be in the perfect space, be calm in our mind, all those little steps that we take when we first learn how to do things. So the first time I learned to meditate, I would go to Zen classes, we'd do a little reading from the Bhagavad Gita, and then they would, we'd spend 3 hours trying to meditate, sitting with the candles. The light would be perfect, the sound would be quiet. And then only if I was lucky, I could see something with my third eye. And that was how I learned to meditate. Now when I meditate, I like robot, 20 seconds, big long conversation with God, lost sense of time, carry on driving when I'm done. So you are in the space now where you're going to get stretched. So you need balance between the masculine and the feminine, and you're trying to do more feminine because, believe it or not, it's your default space. And I just look at you, I look at the pictures behind you, I look at your beautiful outfit, you're stylish, you're gorgeous, and everything about you screams femininity. So you don't have to spend more time with the triggers of how you interpret connecting to the feminine. You are probably being challenged by doing them both at the same time. There's a space when we marry in a relationship, when you become one voice, one body, one everything. I know you know what I mean, because you've spent your life growing up in community, in church, and that kind of thing, by the sound of it. Okay, so that's where you need to go with this. So it's not about secluding and doing two separate. It's not about doing more now. It's about doing more of what matters. And with that, I want to come to another side of the conversation. So when the training wheels come off for us, you might not feel like you can recognize the intuition now, because you have a sense of what they might be like, because you know what we're talking about. but it might come to you in a different way now. You might learn to interpret in a different way, and that's what you're being guided to do. So if you want to, instead of just giving yourself the triggers that you need to feel more connected, become open to other ways of receiving. Okay, they're already there. You probably just can't see them because you expect them to look at a certain way. It might come to you more in your dreams now, and the hologram might just speak to you a little bit more directly now. But other than that, within yourself, you might be asked to make a commitment. And with commitment, I mean the following. And it might look like we learn anything for the first time, it might look like scheduling time for spirit, but it might not have to be 2 hours, it might be 10 minutes. It might be the first thing that you do in the morning before anybody jumps on you. It's not so easy when we live with a partner. It doesn't sound like you do. So it might be those twilight moments when you wake up in the morning before you think of your to-do list in your head. Maybe it's setting your alarm for 10 minutes earlier. And you just lie in your bed and you just open yourself to do nothing. And you schedule that. You schedule that regularly. So the thing with scheduling is it's not about ad hoc. It's about the commitment. Okay. And you might need to move mountains to do such a tiny little thing. But in your world, it's massive. Because the regularity of it, when you show up with a commitment now, it tells spirit you're ready for the next step. And then that will come to you. But it's simple, but it's big. It sounds easy because it's a clear message, but it might be hard to do. Does that follow for you?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Okay. So remember this, and this is important. It's not always about going back to what we know. When we learn in different ways. And sometimes it's not about getting more. It's about having a different view of the same thing. So, and spirit understands the practicalities of our life. So you can say, like I would have a dream, and sometimes I'd say to spirit, please, I just need to sleep tonight. No more, I gotta sleep, because I go into a different frequency when I dream and spirit communicates with me than when I actually have a deep sleep and my body gets recharged. Because I wake up and I feel like I worked harder than I worked during the day often, especially if there's catastrophe events happening in the world, because I help those people to pass. We all have our different gifts. So do you understand where I'm going with this?
Absolutely.
Does it sound like something practical that you could do?
It is.
Okay.
It'll take some practice.
So before you say that, I immediately had the guidance to take you straight through the process quickly. So you're not going to have the time to write it up in your diary and sit and think about this and whatever. Are you prepared to do 10 minutes in the morning? Or should it be 5 minutes? How much should it be?
I'm going to start with 5, to be quite frank. Because 10, when I get to about minute 6, that's when my to do, I got to do this.
Perfect. When will you start? When will you start?
I'll start in the morning.
Which morning?
Tomorrow morning.
Are you?
Yes.
Why do you need to make sure that happens?
What do I need to do? I'll schedule it in my phone. I'll set
do
my
it
alarm.
now. I want to see you do it, please.
Okay.
I know how busy moms are. I used to have a closet that I used to hide in. My kids didn't know about in my house because they even bugged me in the loo.
I have that too. I converted my closet to an office, but even that's not enough now.
Please do that and write a message in there for yourself. So when you wake up, you can read it, because you're going to have to put your phone off. And I don't want you to be angry because you feel tired when you wake up.
Okay, wait, I need to do a calendar, not an alarm clock.
Good. So you guys don't mind while she do this, right?
I'll hurry.
You don't have to hurry.
Saturday, I'm usually up at about 7. So I'll do 7 to 7:05.
Okay, make it a repeated event, please. Okay, so you're going to go through 2 weeks, and sometimes it's going to happen, sometimes it's not going to happen. I need you to stay committed.
So I'm repeating every day. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, the glare from
The glare, yeah.
but it's going to be every day, and it asks me what duration, and I'm going to say forever. So there we go.
Good
So
for
starting
you.
tomorrow morning, 7 to 7:05, every
Okay.
day, forever.
Okay, so the reward, because the ego needs a reward. Okay, because if you don't give the ego something, it's going to fight you.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so what will be something that you want for you, that you've been meaning to get, but you have just not had the time or the inclination or the motivation? It could be something you want. It could be something that you want to allow for yourself.
I want jewelry.
Good. What do you want? And we all love jewelry.
I would like a tennis bracelet.
Okay.
I've always wanted a tennis bracelet, like my whole life. So
Okay.
I'm gonna get a tennis bracelet.
Are you gonna get it for yourself?
Yes.
Are you gonna allow the universe to choose it? At least let the universe
that'd
choose
be great.
it. Yeah, you see how strong is that masculine-ish? You just want to go buy it now. You gotta wait. You gotta wait 2 weeks. Okay, and I personally want an email with a picture.
Okay.
Okay, or even better, I'll give you my number, and then you can send me a picture on WhatsApp. Okay. Okay. So, Kanisha, commitment is not a commitment until we actually do it. Saying we're going to do it is not a choice until we've done it. It's the actual action. And what's going to happen is you're going to align. When you align, it's going to mean that you already now you're stepping into the issues, and then the very thing that you've been meaning to get to, that'll be what you connect with. There's just one more thing I want to say about this. I want you to tell me what emotion it is that you actually want for yourself. What is it that you actually want that's behind this desire, to be more connected to your feminine? Why do you want to do this?
Joy. I want joy in my life.
Okay.
Joy.
Okay.
I can have moments of happiness, but I want like concrete joy.
Okay. So while you are trying to achieve this, that's what I want you to hold. That's what I want you to feel when your alarm goes off in the morning. Yes, this is my joy. Okay. Introduce the space with that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. It's a process. Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay,
See
Robin?
you in 2 weeks with my. Thank you.
Robin, I didn't give you any space to say anything. I'm so sorry.
Yes, I just want to add one thing, and it's not just for Kanisha, it's for everyone who's listening. One of the challenges that we often have is we can get the intuition, but we're lacking in the trust to follow it. That's a big thing. We all want the help that the intuition is giving us, but then we challenge it so that we stay in control. So I think the thing to do is, for Kanisha and for everyone, is begin to trust the intuition little by little, which is what I had to do, and see where it goes. Don't be so quick to take the reins back of your life. Know that the intuition that you're getting is there to help and support you. It's not there to hurt you. It's quite the opposite. It's there to make your life easier. So if we can begin to trust that, and it's hard for many of us because we've had so many relationships where we could not trust. So we don't even have sometimes a template to begin to trust spirit. So take whatever trust you have in whomever you have it in, and begin to put that same kind of trust towards spirit and the messages you're getting. Just pause even for a second when you have regular day-to-day decisions to make to see what comes. Ask the question, how can I do this? What's the best way to make this happen? And see if you feel compelled, propelled to do something in a slightly different way. What that may do over time is just cut a few minutes here, a few minutes there, a few minutes there. And next thing you know, things are getting done easily and effortlessly. But we get the messages, we get the intuition, but we have to learn to trust it. And that is, I think, one of the obstacles sometimes that we do have in moving along with following this divine guidance that we're all getting. So that's kind of my comment.
I have a quick question for you, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
How long has it taken you to learn this?
62 years, which is how old I am now.
And I just want to tell people, you know, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process. And you have to be patient. And it doesn't matter how old you get. What Robin just said doesn't change. If you've had trauma, if your story involves something that has created a lot of pain for you, you're going to be very quick to jump to the other side. It's always going to be a conscious choice to say, I don't choose control. I choose faith.
Right.
You know, I trust. So it doesn't get any easier, but we learn to better interpret the messages, knowing at some point there's going to be this reward for us. And the reward is, and anybody, I know Kanisha could see it on her face when I was talking to her, when you connect with that joy, that's a beautiful word, because there's nothing like that soul satisfying joy that you get. There isn't anything that you can have or own or any experience that is different to that. And once you get that, it's like a drug. You can't get enough of it. So you end up giving up a whole life if that's what it takes. But don't wait that long. You don't have to be running out of all those things, right? It's only when we struggle to learn. So I don't have nothing else to add. Maybe just where we want to go with our group going forward, Robin.
Well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to see the feedback that we get, the input we get. We do have online, for those who need some help in our current unit, a way for people to get information around how to recognize the differences between the spiritualized ego. And we're considering closing the group so that we can really have more personal dialogue and potentially opening up to more chats so that people can have a way to respond and to communicate as we go through the process. We only set up 3 calls because we wanted to cover certain topics, but we know, and as Adele said, this is a process. So we just want to make sure that we have a space available for people to be able to come and share what's happening in their process. So Adele, I'm not sure what the scheduling will be, but as we get feedback in our chats and on our Facebook messages, then we can decide what other kind of topics and when we need to potentially cover other things.
I just want to say that Robin said we close the group. That means you can invite other people to join the group. But when you close a group, it means that the public cannot read those messages. We want to create a safe space for people in the group who's gone through all the different units, who's watched the videos, who we've built a relationship with, to be able to continue benefiting from how they're learning. We don't want the group to become something else. We want it to stay what it is intended for, which means helping you to stay wired to your own heart so that you can build communities, know that there is this group where you can find support, where you can share, because things are going to happen to every single one of you after you've connected with this group. You will become more aware than you were before, and you might have questions. You might want to share something for the benefit of the other people, or you might ask a question. You can post it. We do moderate the post purely because we want to make sure until everybody who's in the group understand it's not for networking. It is, you can obviously, you will get to know people, but if you get to know people and connect with them afterwards or co-create, it will be because you've built a trust relationship with that person first. This is not for networking. It is for learning and sharing and creating a buddy system where we know this is a safe group for us to share what we've learned, and whether we can confirm a message or not, whether we can trust. This is what this is for. So you can post. Robin and I at this point are the moderators, and we will approve it. And you've got our number. If we don't connect in the group, you can alert us to it, because we might be busy with other things at the same time. And maybe when the time comes, we can include more people to help, or whatever the case, but it'll come from a place of trust and understanding what the purpose is of the group. And closing does mean you can invite more people. That's why we're leaving it up. We're leaving the videos up so that people can go through them in the sequence and learn. It's not just for us. We are the foundation. We are the pioneers. We're the activators. Okay. So it was just our sharing, and we felt inspired to do it. And whatever Spirit wants to do with it, that's up to Spirit.
Yes.
And awesome. So that's where we end now, for now. Who knows what tomorrow will bring. Thank you, everybody.
Right.
I just want to say to everybody who's, it's a commitment to bring your time. Time for me is more valuable than money, always has been. So thank you so much for bringing your energy and holding the space with us. Every one of you have your own connection and relationship with these topics. You would not have showed up if this was not dear to you. And those of you who have showed up consistently. So you know what? You are as much part of this as we are. And I want to appreciate you from the bottom of my heart.
Beautifully said, Adele. So thank you, everyone. And we are heart-wired women. Just stay wired to your hearts. That's how you were made, beautifully and wonderfully made by God. The world needs what you're bringing. Bring it. Just bring it. Don't worry about how it looks. Don't censor it. Just be who you are from the heart and bring it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my sister Adele, to be continued.
To be
continued. All right, everyone. Take care of yourselves.